Hi fellas, this lecture is meant to strengthen your hold over the topics taxonomy and systematics. In this lecture, we will focus upon the differences and similarities which taxonomy and systematics share among them. We will also try to understand various processes which come under the two topics taxonomy and systematics. As we know, taxonomy and systematics, they both deal with classification of organisms. So we need to understand why in the first place these two sciences are required. The reason behind the need for classification, that is, the reason that we need taxonomy and systematics is biodiversity. Biodiversity refers to huge, enormous diversity in the biosphere, that is the living world. Diversity refers to enormously high number of different types of species of organisms. There are 1.7 to 1.8 million documented species so far. Such huge number requires a proper systematic arrangement. And if we are to speak about the total estimated species, it's approximately 7 million. So we will have more new and new species being added, and we really need to catalog them properly. So we require a proper system for all this, and that is where taxonomy and systematics comes in. So yes, biodiversity is the main reason behind the need for classification. Before discussing taxonomy and systematics, we need to understand what is ontogeny and phylogeny and how ontogeny and phylogeny differ. Ontogeny means the developmental or the life history of an organism, that is, how that organism developed from a single celled zygote into a complex multicellular organism. However, phylogeny of a particular species to which an organism belongs refers to the evolutionary history, how that particular species must have evolved from a pre-existing species. So, when we talk about the interrelationship of two species, how the two could have developed from one or the other, or must have got a common ancestor rather, so we are talking about the phylogeny of that species. Let's understand this with the help of this diagram here. Let's try to understand ontogeny and phylogeny with the help of this diagram given over here. Here you can see the embryogeny of 5 organisms: fish, salamander, tortoise, chicken, and human. 3 stages have been clearly marked over here: the early embryos, the mid-stage embryos of those 5, and finally the mature embryo or the fetus of those 5 organisms. So when I talk about how the early embryo of fish got developed into the mature fetus of that fish, so we talk about the ontogeny of fish. Similarly, we can see that 5 different organisms have been shown, that is, we have the ontogeny of 5 different organisms over here. However, if we notice clearly, the early stage embryos of all the 5 are quite similar. We cannot differentiate just by seeing on them. But by the time they are the mature fetuses, they get differentiated. So we get a hint from here that these 5 species must have evolved from a common ancestor or from one another. So when we talk about how fish could have evolved into an amphibian, amphibian could have evolved into a reptile, and how reptile managed to evolve into 2 different branches, the apes to which the chicken belongs and 2 mammals to which the humans belong. We are talking about phylogeny. So in phylogeny, we talk about the evolutionary history of a particular species. In the diagram, if we take a look at the mid-stage embryos of these 5 organisms, we can still not differentiate between fish and the amphibian salamander. However, even at the mid-stage embryos, tortoise, which is a reptile, chicken, which is a bird or ape, and human, which is a mammal, still can be differentiated from fish and an amphibian. However, even at the mid-stage, these 3 embryos are quite similar. You still cannot differentiate the embryo of a tortoise from that of a human. But by the time these mid-stage embryos, they evolve into the fetus or the mature embryos, we can clearly mark the difference between all the 5 organisms. So when we try to compare the ontogeny of different organisms or different species to understand the evolutionary relationship or evolutionary history of a particular organism with the other organisms or of a particular species with another species, so that is where phylogeny term is used. This is Linnaeus, or Carolus Linnaeus to be more precise. He is the father of taxonomy and systematics. Here, I have shortlisted 3 of his important publications. First being Philosophia Botanica, in which he gave the rules of nomenclature and also the rules for solving issues regarding synonyms. In case 2 names they clash with each other, how we are going to decide which one is being the priority name. Second being Species Plantarum, which was published in 1953 and is for the botanical classification and nomenclature, that is the classification and nomenclature of plants. Third being Systema Naturae, which was published in 1958 and is for zoological classification and nomenclature, in which Linnaeus classified animals. Now, term taxonomy is derived from Greek words taxis and nomos, where taxis means arrangement and nomos means law. So we can say that taxonomy is the one which deals with the laws of arrangement. Similarly, systematics is derived from Latin word systema, which means systematic arrangement. The term systema was used by Carolus Linnaeus as the title of his publication Systema Naturae. Taxonomy. So what is taxonomy? Taxonomy is the study of procedures and principles of classification. That is the rules and the processes we need to undergo while classification of such diverse organisms. Taxonomy is further branched into 2, the classical taxonomy and the modern taxonomy. Classical taxonomy was based upon morphology, that is the easily observable characters. We used to classify the organisms based on their morphology alone, while in modern taxonomy, along with morphology, we classify the organisms also on the basis of their anatomy, cytology, ontogeny, and ecological information. To remember, the modern taxonomy contains morphology, anatomy, cytology, ontogeny, as well as the ecological information. We can use a small mnemonic, that is McCoy, where M stands for morphology, A stands for anatomy, C stands for cytology, O stands for ontogeny, and E stands for ecological information. Systematics. Systematics is a wider term. It includes taxonomy along with phylogeny. So we can say in systematics we deal not only with the classification of the organisms, but also we try to understand the evolutionary relationships between the 2 species. Again, systematics is of 2 types: the classical or descriptive systematics, then we have biosynthetic or neosystematics. In classical or descriptive systematics, we study the classification based only and only upon the observable characters, that is the morphology, along with phylogeny. In classical or descriptive systematics, the unit of classification is supposed to be species. On the other hand, in biosynthetic or neosystematics, along with morphology, we also take into consideration anatomy, cytology, phylogeny, ecological information, and genetics while we try to classify the organisms. And here, the unit of classification comes out to be population or subspecies. Again, here we have a mnemonic, that is MAC-PEG, in which M stands for morphology, A stands for anatomy, C stands for cytology, P stands for phylogeny, E stands for ecological information, and G stands for genetics. So we can see that while taxonomy deals with only and only the classification, systematics also takes into consideration the evolutionary relationship between two species. So systematics comes out to be a wider term than taxonomy. Let's discuss various taxonomic processes or taxonomic procedures. So while we classify an organism, first of all we need to characterize the organism. Then we need to identify that organism. Then we classify the organism, and finally we give that organism a name if required. If it's a new organism, we are going to nomenclate that organism. We are going to give a name to that organism. Again, we have a mnemonic over here. C stands for characterization, I for identification, C for classification, and NO stands for nomenclature. Let's try to understand the taxonomic processes in more detail. Characterization and identification. So characterization is a detailed description of the phenotype of an organism. What is phenotype? Phenotype refers to the external manifestation of the organism. That is, phenotype gives us information about morphology, anatomy, behavior, nutrition and habitat of that organism, and many more things. Identification refers to an extensive and exhaustive but comparative search for a similar organism. While we are trying to identify an organism, we try to look for various characters and similarities as well as differences in the organisms which are similar to it, so that we can reach up to an organism which is most similar to that organism, and then we may try to classify it and nomenclate it. So let's try to understand characterization and identification with the help of an example. Let us suppose we see this organism in a forest and we think that it's a new organism, since you may not have seen it before. So you think that you have discovered a new organism which you may not have, because this organism is quite rare and someone may have already classified it. But how will you come to know until you try this? So first of all, you'll try to characterize this organism. You will try to give the phenotype of this organism. For example, this animal has got a tail, has got 4 limbs, and has got fur on its body. It's got 2 external ears, 2 eyes, nose, and a mouth. Of course, this organism moves from one place to another, and it has also got claws. So what I have done right now is that I have specified some phenotypes of this organism, some characteristics of this organism. So I have characterized this organism, and these characteristics I am going to use to compare this organism to the other organisms. Therefore, using a comparative approach, I am going to identify this organism. So now we'll try to trace this organism on this tree, and we'll try to reach an organism which is most similar to the one which we saw. So this organism is a macroscopic organism and not a microscopic organism. So this organism is not a bacteria or an archaebacteria. This organism is also not some protist or a fungi. Of course, this organism does not look like a mushroom. And the organism is moving from one place to another and is not green at all. That organism did not have any leaves, so that organism cannot be any of the plant as well. The organism did not look like any insect. It had fur and not a chitinous exoskeleton, so we also rule out the possibilities of it being an arthropod or a mollusk. The organism did not swim in water. It was found on a tree. So definitely it's not a fish. The organism was not flying, and it did not have scales on its skin like a snake. So neither it's an amphibian nor a reptile or a bird. This organism was nearest to being a rat. So we can have a hint that this organism was some kind of a rodent. Of course, it's not a human. and that organism is also not a rabbit. We have seen a rabbit before. So what I tried to do is that I tried to trace the origin of that organism. So this is known as characterization and identification. I compared the characters of that organism, I compared the phenotype of the organism with the other organisms, and therefore I ruled out the organisms which were not quite similar in comparison to the others. Therefore, we call identification to be exhaustive and a comparative approach. We compare the organism with one another and then we try to identify and trace the organism to its originality. So once we have characterized that organism and identified that organism, we are going to try to classify the organism. So we are going to deal with classification. What is classification? Classification is assigning suitable taxonomic categories to the specimen. While dealing in classification, we come across three terms: the taxonomic hierarchy, taxonomic category, and taxon. We need to understand these three first before we deal with classification. So, taxonomic hierarchy and taxonomic category. Taxonomic hierarchy is a sequence or an orderly arrangement of taxonomic categories. Taxonomic category is set of specific characters common to all organisms belonging to that category. So this entire sequence is the taxonomic hierarchy, while each block of this entire sequence represents the taxonomic category. That is, domain is a taxonomic category, kingdom is a taxonomic category, phylum is a taxonomic category, and similarly others are also the taxonomic categories. So this arrangement of the taxonomic categories in ascending or a descending order is called the taxonomic hierarchy. So in the taxonomic hierarchy, when we move from kingdom towards species, we descend the taxonomic hierarchy. And while we move from species towards the kingdom, we ascend the taxonomic hierarchy. As we descend the taxonomic hierarchy, that is, as we move from kingdom towards the species, the diversity decreases. However, the similarity or the homology between two organisms or two species will increase. So here in this diagram we can see kingdom contains a huge diversity. We got the fishes, the reptiles, the mammals, the cats, the dogs, bear, insects all together. As we move down to the phylum, here we have the phylum Chordata. So the insects were taken out. We are left only with fishes, kangaroos, humans, cats, dogs, etc. Further moving down to the mammalia, the fishes were taken out and we are left with only the mammals. Moving to the order Carnivora, the kangaroos were taken out, humans were taken out, and we were left with dog, bear, and a few of the cat species. Moving down to Felidae. The family Felidae contains only the cats. So you have seen, first we had the fishes, the humans, the huge biodiversity was there in the kingdom. The phylum had a fewer biodiversity, class had even fewer biodiversity, order contained even few biodiversity. And by the time we reach to the species, we have a single species, that is the common cat or Felis catus. Felis catus is the biological or scientific name of a cat. So the biodiversity decreases as we move from kingdom to species, but the similarity increases. Of course, the fishes and the humans which were put together in the kingdom do not have similarities. But in family Felidae, the cats, the big and the small cats are put together, which are quite similar. A cat will resemble more to the other cat than resembling to the dog. In order, we can see we have the dog, we have the bear and the cats all together. However, we do not have fishes over here. So the similarities are continuously increasing as we descend the taxonomic hierarchy. Though the number of species, that is, the biodiversity, will continue decrease from kingdom to species as we descend down the taxonomic hierarchy. Now there are 7 obligate, that is obvious taxonomic categories. To remember these 7 obligate taxonomic categories, I have a mnemonic: small girl fed old cat pork, where S stands for species, G stands for genus, F stands for family, O stands for order, C of the cat stands for class, P stands for phylum, and K stands for kingdom. Domain is a taxonomic category but is not an obligate taxonomic category according to NCERT. So we have to keep that in mind. Here in this lecture, we are going to discuss kingdom, domain, genus, and species. So we are going to deal with 4 taxonomic categories only, that is the domain, kingdom, the first two, and the last two, that is the species and the genus. Let's talk about the domains of life. Basically, the entire life on earth has been categorized under 3 domains. One domain is the archaea domain, other being the bacteria domain, and then we have the eukarya domain. Though we are going to deal with them in more details in some other chapters, but I'll give you an overview over here. The archaea domain contains prehistoric organisms like Methanobacterium, Methanococcus, Thermoacidophils, and Halophils. These are prokaryotic but primitive organisms. Bacteria domain contains all the bacteria. Again, these are prokaryotic organisms. Eukarya domain contains all the eukaryotic organisms, all the organisms which contain a true nucleus and have membrane bound organelles in their cells. So eukarya domain is the largest domain and will contain animals, fungi, plants, as well as the protists.